Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Dentzel Domain on Red State Talk Radio. I am your host, Ed Dentzel. It's Friday night. Hope everybody had a good week. Had to delay the recording of this show today because of a huge truck out in front of my place that was sucking up all of the crap in the sewers around the area. In fact, you could see, if you don't know, I use the program GarageBand on my Mac Mini to do this show. And my microphone was sensitive enough that it could pick up the humming of the truck outside. Now, granted, that wasn't such a big deal because the generator or whatever it is, the vacuum on this truck was so loud that you could actually see it registering on my computer through the microphone. So as long as that was the case, wasn't going to be able to do this show. So I had to wait about 45 minutes for that to cease and the truck to drive away. Why it needed to be done today, I have no idea. I have to tell you the truth. I have no idea what goes on in local politics in Madeira Beach, Florida. I don't know. I couldn't tell you who the mayor is. I couldn't tell you who's on the council. I've been in the library. I've been by where they get together with these meetings for the town. That's about it. So what was going on out here this morning, I have no idea. But it was loud, and I just had to wait. So I tried to get some other things done, and now I'm talking to you. And it's Friday night. We're getting ready for the weekend. I think today, this show, I just want to clear out my stack of stuff. I guess that's what Rush Limbaugh would say. Of things that have kind of stacked up that I haven't been able to get to over the last few days. And we're going to hit them, I think, hopefully real quickly. Instead, you know how I usually do this show. I pick out maybe 3 topics, and I get to them. Usually 2 topics that I discuss fairly long, and then at the end, in the last 5 minutes, I'll add in a little ending, little trolley to the train to leave you with something to think about before I leave you for the night. But that's going to be a little bit different for this show. So let's get right into it. Debate last night, have to be honest, didn't watch it. I got some updates from it from a couple friends of mine. I followed the Twitter feed of National Review as it was going on. Doesn't seem like there was as many fireworks as there were the last time, the last debate. Some people liked that, some people didn't. It sounds to me like Donald Trump had the same type of debate that he's been having lately, where he says a lot of things just off the top of his head. Tiananmen Square was a riot. He said he didn't want to get involved in the Middle East, and then he said he was going to commit 30,000 troops to the Middle East. And so he was flip-flopping back and forth all over the place. Not even sure that matters. Rubio and Cruz, they decided to not attack each other again. However, it doesn't seem that Marco Rubio felt that he wanted to get into the gutter. I wouldn't say that's in the gutter. I liked what Marco Rubio did the last debate in mocking Donald Trump, but he didn't do it this time. Not sure why that is, but this debate just was a little more low-key. In fact, I heard some people say that it was boring. Once again, I'm glad that I missed it. I was mad missing the last one because of what went on. I'm not too angry about missing the one yesterday. John Kasich, he's still on stage, still trying to be the fake adult up there. He may very well stay in. As I told you yesterday, I think this is the last debate where you're going to see 4 guys on stage, unless Marco Rubio wins Florida. If that happens, then he's not going away, and it creates a very complex situation. I think it's safe to say that if Donald Trump doesn't win Florida, if Rubio does, then the math just gets very, very complicated for everybody, including Donald Trump, despite him having more delegates than anybody else right now. And as a Ted Cruz, I wouldn't call myself a supporter, but of the guys who are left, he is the one who most encompasses my values, my character, what I think about politics. It's kind of a weird situation that do you attack Rubio from now till Tuesday in hopes of keeping Rubio from winning Florida and knocking him out? Or now do you want Rubio to stay in, try to win Florida so he takes those delegates away from Florida, from Donald Trump, because Ted Cruz himself has no hope of winning Florida. And hopefully he has about 10 mathematicians trying to figure all those angles out. Along with the political scientists, they get together and figure out what's going to happen after Tuesday so they know what to do. We'll see. So I didn't watch it. Pretty much, though, I gathered it was just like the last debate that Donald Trump made a fool of himself. Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz had good debates. John Kasich, everybody's still trying to figure out why he's up there. Then we come to Ben Carson, who yesterday endorsed Donald Trump. And is this not the final nail in the coffin, to use a horrible cliche? The final nail in the coffin of his character? We know going back several months now that how he was connected to this suspicious supplement company that had a lot of cases and lawsuits brought against it, and how he tried to distance himself from that, but I don't know if he adequately ever did that. But all the while, a lot of people, including myself, you know what, I think Ben Carson's a good guy. Yeah, he's not a very good politician. He and I may think the same way on some certain issues, but he sounds like the type of guy who's never argued with a person who's different than him before. And then you hear about his campaign manager dropping out and finance manager quitting back in, when was that, October, November. And there are a lot of rumors out there that he's just doing this campaign to sell books and to get emailing lists so he can continue to market himself afterwards. And I know that there are a couple other people on Red State Talk Radio who I've talked to over the last 6 months that believe that the Nation of Islam is really behind Ben Carson's his entire campaign. I don't know if that to be a fact or not. And then his campaign, what they said about Ted Cruz and how Ted Cruz was trying to undermine and lie about Ben Carson's campaign in Iowa. When I think that the timeline shows that that wasn't exactly what happened, although there might have been a couple overzealous Trump people who might have spread some things that weren't necessarily true, but I don't think it was orchestrated. I don't think it was planned. And then his performance in the debates were lackluster. He seemed to ramble on and on and on. And then you get to the point yesterday where he endorses Donald Trump, a guy who has courted the KKK for his presidency, and for the nomination, for support. Has retweeted their tweets on his feed, claims that he doesn't know David Duke. Years before, he says he does know who David Duke is, on and on and on. And then Ben Carson, who just happens to be black, endorses Donald Trump. If there is anybody, I have to say this, if there is anybody who has been exposed for not being the person we thought he was this time around, it's Ben Carson. It's not Donald Trump. I don't think anybody's surprised by the way Donald Trump has acted. You either like it or you don't. But you know who Donald Trump is. I don't particularly like it, so that's why I haven't supported him. That's why I'm a never Trump guy. With Marco Rubio, pretty much he's been who you think he is. Ted Cruz, kind of the same way. Even John Kasich, kind of that same guy. Although it's seemingly changed over the years. I wouldn't say there have been any huge surprises in this campaign, given how he has been the governor of Ohio. And his embracing of some parts of Obamacare and expanding government in Ohio despite what he may say about all the jobs that he's created. But I don't think there was any surprise regarding his demeanor, his character, anything like that. With Ben Carson, he's allowed his name to be dirtied week after week after week, and really, he's done it mostly himself. So, I don't think I can say anymore that I like Ben Carson as a person, but he just is not fit to be president of the United States. The truth is, I guess what we found out, at least I found it out, is that Ben Carson is not fit to be president, and his character is somewhat lackluster too. It can't stand stress. It's easy to have character integrity when every day is just rainbows and unicorns. But when you are put in those tough situations in your life, what decisions do you make? That is the true test. And I think that Ben Carson over the last 8 months has failed it. He's failed it. You know, this is really, everybody made fun of Chris Christie when he endorsed Donald Trump, given what Chris Christie said about Donald Trump going back to last summer. Ben Carson's endorsement is worse than Chris Christie's endorsement. Ben Carson's is more of a flip than Chris Christie's because you know why? Ben Carson is the guy who said that he was going to be different, right? I'm not a politician. I come from the private sector. I've run clinics. I've run hospitals. I've operated on people. I've never run for any office before. Never been dog catcher, nothing else. And then in the end, he just goes and does what Chris Christie, not career politician, but close. Ben Carson just does what Chris Christie does. And that's what makes it worse for Ben Carson. I can't help but think that a lot of people, let's put it this way, are Ben Carson supporters going to move over and support Donald Trump? I don't think so, at least not a majority. It would probably be a very small minority. Now, I could see why they wouldn't go to Ted Cruz given what happened in Iowa, if they believe it. If they believe it, then I can understand why they wouldn't. So who's that leave? John Kasich and Marco Rubio. And there's even talk out there that Ben Carson, and this came up, when was it, a month ago? Maybe not a month ago. I told you that I was driving over to my parents' place. They're down here till the end of March. And I happened to turn on Sean Hannity's show, and there's somebody calling in saying that she's a Trump supporter and she'd love for Ben Carson to be the running mate. Remember that story if you've been listening to that show, my show? And I was just shaking my head, and then there was a caller. With both women, and the caller after that likes Ben Carson but hopes that he doesn't. He hopes that he wouldn't take on the vice presidential slot if Trump was the nominee. I think we can now say that Ben Carson would accept the vice presidential position in a Trump candidacy. I don't think there's any doubt about that now. And now you know his character. And it's too bad. I'm not saying that I wouldn't want Ben Carson to operate me. Of course, if he listened to this podcast, maybe he might kill me on the operating table. I'm not saying he's not talented in what he's chosen to do with his life. You just find a guy that was not ready for prime time. And I've been saying that in not just his policies, we now find out that his character was not ready for prime time. And this is what's so difficult in politics, not just with Ben Carson, not just with any of these candidates, but people in general. We know as conservatives, we think that we're electing these good people, men and women, and then they get into Washington, D.C., and most of them seem to go the wrong direction. Most of them, and we get disgusted. Why? big government is a test. To have all that power and have the character to not push any of the buttons. I haven't talked about this recently. That was something that I was talking about maybe the end of last year. It's easy for liberals. They get into office and they have all these buttons and levers and switches and knobs of how they can manipulate this and manipulate that all over the place. And they love it. For conservatives, what we have to do, if we're to maintain our values and an allegiance to our values, is not touch anything. Even though that lever is right in your face. Even though that button is right in your face. And you see everybody else pushing them and manipulating them and these people getting reelected. But your belief system is, I shouldn't touch any of this stuff. In fact, I should be trying to disconnect all of it. And the truth is, a majority of people are not equipped for that. Why? Because in our human nature, we believe in doing things. And that usually means pushing a lever, pulling a lever, pushing a button, turning a knob, calling somebody, doing a favor, things like that, instead of doing nothing. And in fact, trying to tear the stuff down. It's like you see in maybe many movies, well, we got to do something, do anything. And it takes quite a bit of character to say, well, I think the best thing we can do here is do nothing. Not change anything. Not the best thing, but maybe right now we shouldn't be touching any of these knobs, levers, buttons, anything. And I think that what has happened is Ben Carson got into that situation. And he wants to be a lever puller. And he wants to be a button pusher. So it's just difficult. And I will give these people somewhat of a break. On the other hand, all of those people who do that deserve to be primaried. Mm-hmm. I understand that they're giving into their human nature, but if you're going to do that, then, well, we're just maybe going to have to find somebody else. So Ben Carson, I don't know if he realizes it. I think that there are a lot of people making a lot of money off of him running. I just wonder if he realizes in the end how much he has tarnished his name. I mean, this is a guy who was a rock star 2 years ago at that prayer breakfast talking about Obamacare right in front of Barack Obama, saying how bad Obamacare is. And now 2 years later, he's endorsing a guy who has talked favorably about single-payer health care. I don't know how you fall from grace further than that. I just don't, in politics, I just don't know. And I hope that there are many Ben Carson supporters who realize the error that this guy has made, and I hope they come over and embrace Ted Cruz, even though they may have some misgivings about what happened in Iowa. And once again, I'm not even sure anything happened in Iowa. I know Carson supporters think that way. I'm not sure that's what went down. But if they are anti-Trump, the only guy now who has the possibility of taking out Donald Trump is Ted Cruz. You former Carson supporters, I'm sure Ted Cruz would love to have you. Let's move on to next. I told you. I'm just going to hit these items. Just need to get this all off my plate before we go to the weekend. Did you see this video? And we shouldn't be surprised by this, by the way. Did you see this video of this old guy? His name is John McGraw. John McGraw, 78 years old. Trump supporter. Did you see the video of him punching that protester? I don't know how. Was that a few days ago? Was that Wednesday? Was that Tuesday? Was it Wednesday? Did you see that? Now, I wonder where he got that from. I don't know John McGraw. I don't think I'll ever meet him. I'm sure they're going to look into his background because he's going to be charged, I'm going to guess, with a felony for what he did. And if you haven't seen it, there was a Trump rally. He's standing like at the end of a row, And these protesters had come in, and I'm guessing they were Black Lives Matter people. I will say that they were all non-white, so that's my first inclination. Maybe they're Black Lives Matter people. Well, they were leaving the venue, climbing the steps, and John McGraw, standing at the end of the aisle, right by these steps, just hauled off and hit this girl right in the face. Right in the face. And we're going to find out about John McGraw. We may find out if he has prior history of violence and all of that. Those things usually come out on the smokinggun.com or TMZ or something like that. But you can't really blame him, can you? Being that a few months ago, Donald Trump said that, hey, if you're going to if we have any protesters here, I want you to punch them, I want you to attack them, and don't worry, I'll take care of any of the trouble you get into. I'll pay your legal fees, everything else. I want to know, is Donald Trump going to pay John McGraw's legal fees? Because he's going to have some. I don't know what Donald Trump, maybe this guy will spend some time in jail. I don't know. I don't know what the exact penalty will get. Maybe he'll get off easy if it's his first offense. If he does not have a history of violence, if he has no criminal record, maybe they'll just say, well, he got caught up in the heat of the moment. Give him a fine. I want to know, Donald Trump going to pay that fine? If this guy gets sent to jail, is Donald Trump going to go to jail for this guy? Once again, we can't be surprised because Donald Trump has said as much. That's exactly what he expects his followers to do. Now, a 78-year-old guy could be charged with a felony. I don't know how he gets out of it. And you should know something, and this is something that I was talking to my dad about that particular circumstance. Yesterday we were talking about it. That this happened in our family several years ago, back in the late 90s, where we had a family member who's not alive anymore. Rest in peace. But he got into a road rage incident. He was pulling into his complex, and it was like a gated community, and the person behind him was bothering him, like honking his horn or something like that. The line wasn't moving fast enough. This relative of ours jumped out of his car, went back to the other car, and our relative punched this guy. And charges were brought against this person in our family. And guess what happens when that happens and when you get charged with a felony like that? You lose all of your guns. Remember, you can't buy a gun in the United States legally if you are a felon. And nobody knows that more than me, being that I just bought my first gun a couple months ago. You have to fill that out saying, have you ever been charged with a crime? Are you a man on the run? All these things. Of course, I'm not. And I've never been charged with felony. Speeding tickets are about the extent of my unlawfulness in my life. So this relative of mine lost his guns. Now, John McGraw, he's at this Trump rally. He's 78 years old. I'm going to guess he has some guns. Guess what? If he gets charged with a felony and it sticks, he loses all of them. Now, what's Donald Trump going to do about that? 78-year-old guy, maybe lives by himself. Can't fight his way out of trouble. Needs a gun in case somebody breaks into his home. Now, I don't know, once again, I don't know anything about John McGraw. Now, if you're going to tell me that he's been a felon his whole life and has been in jail and has beat up other people, then I'll say, well, maybe that wasn't brought on by Donald Trump. But if he's a first-timer, I don't know how you can think any other way. So I feel bad for this guy. And it gets back to that anger that has almost become a cliche now regarding the Trump phenomenon. You don't hear anger regarding Ted Cruz supporters, Marco Rubio supporters, Kasich supporters, Ben Carson supporters, Chris Christie supporters. You hear anger at in the realms of Trump supporters. And then it's no wonder that Trump events tend to be the most violent. Because I have another story for you. Maybe you've heard this one too, but I want to go over it. Michelle Fields, she's a reporter for Breitbart.com, which makes, being that she works for Breitbart.com, makes the story, it's not funny, but quite ironic. Because I've told you, I don't go to Breitbart.com anymore. I've decided that within the last 6-8 months, it's become a hack site. It's become TMZ for politics. And I don't want to have anything to do with it. But she was at a Trump event on, was it yesterday, Wednesday? And she was trying to ask Donald Trump a question. And Donald Trump's campaign manager, not some underling, not some volunteer, not some bodyguard, the actual campaign manager, this Lewandowski guy. I went to college with a guy, his last name was Lewandowski. Didn't know him very well. But so just I saw that name. I was wondering, well, how common is that name? Maybe they're related. I don't know. This guy threw her to the ground. And it was caught on, it wasn't videotaped to my knowledge, but there is a audio recording of it. And of course, the Trump people are denying that ever happened. That brilliant press spokesman for Donald Trump, Katrina Pearson, comes out and says that it never happened. But we understand why Breitbart, the people there, have to defend her. Now, is this John McGraw incident and this Michelle Fields incident totally separate? Or is it a coincidence? Or is it all related to a certain tone that the Trump campaign has? And keep in mind, Michelle Fields is representing a website that has been more than gracious for Breitbart, for Donald Trump. Now, I know, I'm going to guess Donald Trump, his campaign manager, didn't know who she was. I'm not, did she have like, I work for Breitbart.com plastered on, a shirt or a jacket or something like that? Probably not. But I know that many people have warned Breitbart.com in the preceding months about getting caught up in showing too much love for Donald Trump, because these are the types of things that happened, and you are going to get caught up in the middle of it. Well, they didn't listen. Now they have to come out and defend their reporter. And I guess one of the other reporters at Breitbart.com has chosen to not believe Michelle Fields. He got suspended, and that's good on Breitbart.com for doing that. But now they have to say that the guy that they've been pumping up over and over and over, his campaign manager, attacked Michelle Fields, which once again is a felony, threw her to the ground. I know if average regular guy throws his wife to the ground and she calls the cops, he's going to jail. Do you think that will happen here? See, this is why I've said, all of you have to stay away from hero worship. You cannot get caught up in these men and women, politicians, personally. Moreover, for those in the media, we know as conservatives, we have a lot of complaints about the media. But we as conservatives, guess what? We've probably taken it too far too with the politicians that we like. Because these things happen. And you should never put yourself in a position where, because let's put it this way, this is predictable. This is predictable. With the way Donald Trump has been talking for months, 2 separate violent incidences, 2 felonies happening within 24 hours of each other, that is predictable. Why? Because the candidate himself has said that it's okay. So it shouldn't be surprised that his campaign manager acts like he did. But all these media outlets that have been making money off of all the clicks they're getting from covering Donald Trump in a positive way, ignored it. It's disgusting. But I got to go to the break. You've been listening to the Dentzel Domain on Red State.
You're listening to Red State Talk Radio, America's premier conservative talk radio network.
You critics don't define our honor. You try to shame us for doing our job. You teach children to fear us, crowds to attack us, and good people to doubt us. But we will never back down from our sworn duty to uphold the Constitution of the United States of America. We wake up every day, put on our badge, strap a gun to our hips, kiss our families goodbye, and put our lives between the law-abiding and any criminal who threatens their rights. We serve people of every color and creed, men, women, and children in violent, dangerous neighborhoods, because they have the same right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness as CEOs, movie stars, and the political elite. We are Americans, and we are the American police officer. We stand with the National Rifle Association of America, and the NRA stands with us. Together, we're freedom's safest place.
I know. We Christians are just as bad as Muslims who fly planes into buildings and video themselves sawing people's heads off and beheading kids and mutilating women and shooting people who draw cartoons. That's right. You better be just as wary of us Christians, because we don't mess around. Don't be insulting our Jesus, because you think Muslims are bad. Oh, man, don't push us. You think the Muslims are bad when they prey on people for insulting Muhammad? You're really going to get it when Christians pray for you for insulting Jesus.
It could be easy to take what we have for granted and not appreciate everything the men and women of law enforcement do for us every day. So to all my heroes out there, I just want to say thank you.
Thank you for protecting my family,
my business,
my kids,
our community.
Thank you for listening to us,
for being there for me, for keeping me safe.
To all those in law enforcement, thank you.
This is Primo Mondoni, host of the Red State Town Hall. Join me Sundays at 11 p.m. Eastern on Red State Talk Radio, the dominant force in conservative internet talk radio. So, lock it in and rip the knob off.
This is Paul Preston, host of Agenda 21 Radio. Join me Monday through Friday on Red State Talk Radio, the dominant force in conservative internet talk radio. So lock it in and rip the knob off.
We're back at the Dentzel Domain on Red State Talk Radio. I want to continue to talk about these couple incidents for just a few more minutes regarding John McGraw and Michelle Fields. I'm going to tell you that I do not believe, on top of everything that else that has been said about the particular attack of John McGraw on that woman, I do believe that there was a racial element to it as well. I don't know how you can't at least think that, because I know when I saw the video, that's what I thought. Now, I wouldn't think that if it was some other campaign. If it was a Cruz event and they had Black Lives Matter people come in and try to, bother Cruz as he was talking or do whatever, and then they were leaving in an orderly manner, and some old guy punched one of these black women who were leaving, I wouldn't think it was racial. Because Ted Cruz or Marco Rubio's, John Kasich's campaigns do not have a racist tone to them. However, in Donald Trump's case, we know he retweets the KKK and other white supremacist groups. Can I just tell you on a side note, I'm a white guy. I do not see the white race as being supreme. I just don't. Can I just tell you that? I just happen to be white. And maybe there's a discussion I can get into maybe before this is over about this regarding another friend of mine. But maybe we'll leave that. We'll just have to see. But this whole white supremacist, white supreme race thing, as a white guy, as a lily white guy, as a pale guy, as a guy who really has to watch not getting sunburned, it is the biggest farce in the history of the world. It is a bigger farce than global warming. You know? And that Donald Trump has embraced it shows me what, he's a white guy. He should know we're not supreme. We're just people. But he embraces it. And so then another old white guy punches a black woman at a Trump event. I don't think it's too far to make a correlation there. To make the jump to, hey, it's a black person, I'm allowed to punch them. So it's all mixed in there. Now, Michelle Fields, I don't know what her race is. I know she's white. I haven't seen her face, but I saw the picture of the bruise she got, and I remember her having a white arm. So there's that. But I do believe that there was some sort of racial, is it an undertone or an overtone, to that John McKay attack on that black girl. And I don't care that she's a liberal, a socialist, a Black Lives Matter kook. She doesn't deserve to be punched. Doesn't. They were there. They were protesting peacefully. There's no record of them attacking any Trump supporters, to my knowledge. They seem to be walking out of the venue orderly. They weren't whipping the fingers that I saw that anything like that. Maybe she said something to this guy. Maybe we'll find out about that. But as an adult, you just got to control yourself. You know, that relative of mine that I mentioned, he didn't control himself. And he paid for it. Lost all his weapons. He was a legal gun owner, and he suddenly became an illegal gun owner. And I think that would happen with most people in any state. And that's probably what's going to happen to John McGraw. And all over a freaking politician. That's it. It's disgusting. It really is. Let's move on to something else. There's a discussion going on at Ricochet.com, which, as you know, is one of my favorite sites. I used to be a member there, but I'm not a member there anymore because I discovered that I really don't care to comment. I really don't read a lot of the I read the comments in this particular topic that they're talking about, but most of them I don't. I listen to the podcast. I read some things. I've met some of the people in person who write there, so I think that's part of it. But I don't feel like commenting there, so I just don't pay. Hey, that's the way they run their site. Don't blame it on me. But if you want to comment, I would recommend, if you want a more civil discussion about politics and you like commenting and arguing back and forth with people on the internet, then that's a good place to be. I don't like arguing with people on the internet. Through Twitter or email or Facebook, I just don't like it. So I don't do it. You want to argue with me in person? Awesome. But in any case, they're having a discussion about not voting for Donald Trump. And, you know, or will you, and I guess I'm a pundit now, being that I do this show and I've been doing it for almost 2 years on Red State Talk Radio. We're getting more and more popular. Our numbers are increasing by double digits in percentage-wise every month. And that's awesome. So I guess gradually I'm slowly getting into the punditry class. And so the question being asked there is, you know what happens if your favorite pundit says that he or she isn't voting, or the conservative pundit says that he'll vote for Hillary instead? What are you going to do? Well, and so there's discussion going on. I can tell you, I'm not voting for Donald Trump. And I'm not voting for Hillary Clinton either. And I reject the idea that not voting for Donald Trump is a vote for Hillary Clinton. We have to remember something, and this is a discussion I had with this guy that I went to college with that I hope to have on the show maybe next week, maybe if we can swing it. You have to remember something. The idea is supposed to be in our country. Remember, there's no law that says you have to vote. If voting was so important, it would be in the Constitution. It says every citizen must vote. It doesn't. And I realize how the voting, women couldn't vote when we started this country. All of the changes that we've had to voting, who can vote, how old you have to be, the racial element concerning of all of it. There's nothing that says you have to vote. In fact, the way our country is set up is that it's more important to follow the law than it is to vote. We are a nation of laws, not of men. We are not a nation of voting either. Voting is just one small aspect of everything. And that's why it always makes me laugh when these people wear these stickers, I voted. Well, yeah, you're voting, but on the other hand, I know that you're breaking the law by smoking weed on the side too. You smoking weed is more an undercutting of our country, even though you can argue whether it's legal or not, but it's illegal. It should be legal and everything, but it is illegal. That's more of a damage to our country than you not voting. Just keep that in mind. Voting as, hey, the Founding Fathers, if they thought everybody was supposed to vote, they would have said everybody's supposed to vote. And women, white women, granted, I know that what our attitude was toward black people back then, but white women, they couldn't vote either. Is it wrong? I guess so. Of course. But that just shows you how important voting they thought voting was for the average citizen. Women were still citizens. They just weren't going to let them vote. So how important did they think voting was? Not very. That's the way I look at it. If voting was so important of being a citizen of the United States, they would have included it. Of course, they did. Eventually, women were allowed to vote. And I just wish more women voted conservative these days. So it's not the apex of our country, voting. Following the law is. And if you don't like the law, going about changing it, and that is where voting and getting involved in the political process comes in. Remember, our country exists. The laws existed first, then we became a country. It was the Constitution that made our country. It wasn't the country that made the Constitution. Just because we declared independence from England didn't automatically make us a country. Remember that. So that's why the laws come first, not the men or the women. But there's another part to this as well regarding this whole idea, well, if you don't vote for Trump, then you're not doing your civic duty of voting and you're not going to vote at all. You're not. The last time I'm pretty sure I'm right on this. Aren't politicians supposed to earn our vote? Are they not supposed to do that? They're not supposed to take our vote for granted, right? That's a big complaint I hear. Well, these politicians, they just take my vote for granted. Well, maybe they do is because 90% of them get reelected no matter what they do in office. How about that? And that's on you. That's not on them. You allow them to get away with what they continue to do. I thought our leaders were supposed to earn our vote. And if they don't, you don't vote. Now, is Donald Trump earning your vote? Is he? Is Hillary Clinton earning your vote? For all you Democrats who may be listening, is Hillary Clinton earning your vote? Or are you just taking the lesser of two evils? Because I'm not sure that's what the United States is about. In fact, I think that we can prove now that we've existed for how many years now? 217, no, 200 and almost 20, over 225 years, something like that, 1780. What do I want to do? 1789 to now, every money, 11 plus 227 years? Is that about that? We have a lot of evidence that shows that when people compromise their values and just try to vote against the other person, we see what we get. This is what you get. You get $18 trillion in debt. You have a lot of politicians who get into office, and suddenly when they do retire, they're worth a whole hell of a lot more money than they are when they go in. Right? That's what it's shown us over the last 200 years. When you vote just because against the other guy, what you're really saying is, neither has earned my vote, but I got a vote against the other guy. You know what that does? The politician you vote for knows that you are doing that. They know. And they also know because you're doing that, they know that they can get away with a lot. They aren't stupid, no matter what you may think about them otherwise. What we may think about politicians in general. So I ask you again, for all you Republicans who are giving us types of people, us never Trump people, a hard time about how we're not going to vote for him, I just want to ask you, is Donald Trump earning your vote? What part of it is what part of it is he doing that is earning it? You mean all his flip-flops? You mean his retweeting of the Ku Klux Klan? You mean how people beat up regular people? You know, there's fights that go on at his events. Is that what's earning your vote? Is his foul language earning your vote? Are his bankruptcies earning your vote? I just want to know. Or is it just simply, well, we have to vote for him because it could be Hillary? Here's what I know about Hillary Clinton. Here's what I know. As much as I despise her, let's take two very good examples between both. I think that the Clinton Foundation, with all its flaws and its corruption, has done more for people than Trump University did. Remember, we as Republicans and conservatives, we make fun of Clinton Foundation. How it was shady, getting around taxes. It was just going into the Clintons' pocketbook, on and on and on. Trump University was a 100% scam. The Clinton Foundation, it has actually given money to cancer institutes and things like that. It's like about a 50% scam. Granted, they both suck. But if you're going to get down to the minutia of it, the Clinton Foundation has done more for people than the Trump University did. Just remember that. And I think that if we were to take a look at all of these different things, Hillary Clinton would still continue to be horrible, but in many aspects of her life, we'd be better than Donald Trump. The only difference is I don't think Donald Trump has gotten anybody killed, whereas I think Hillary Clinton has. And I know that matters to those families, and that matters. That's important. It's obviously important. But there's a lot of correlations that can be made for both. And if Hillary Clinton isn't earning your vote, then I don't see how Donald Trump can be earning your vote on an objective scale. All right? That's my opinion on this. And that's the point I'm going to continue to make with my decision. He's not earning my vote. That's what's supposed to happen. I know we forget about it because we're so eager on beating the other guy. But they have to earn it. Not earning it. Not earning it. In fact, I would go as far to say that politicians take us for granted. Why? Because we don't make them earn it. Let's move on to something else. Wait, one more thing on this regarding the choice. This, once again, it's not an if this or that choice. This isn't like, I even haven't written my notes, even as morbid as this is. This isn't like September 11th, where those people were stuck in the World Trade Center and they had a choice, either dying by fire, smoke inhalation, standing on, like the 100th floor of one of the towers, or jumping to your death. It was one or the other. And of course, maybe had they known that the building was going to collapse, that would have been like a third choice that did, no, well, I can die 3 ways. Burn, something falling on me, or jumping out this window. There's no choices. All of them horribly, horribly bad that are going to end your life. That's just the way it is. It sucks. This is not that. Politics is not that. We do have choices. We have numerous choices on what we can choose to do. All right? We have free will regarding this, and we can use our values to make a decision. We're not being forced into this situation. Well, you have to pick Trump or Clinton, Trump or Clinton, Trump or Clinton. There are no other choices. That's not true. Not true. Let's move on to something else. Blowing up the system. This is, I have written in my notes here, The True Believer by Eric Hoffer. That is a book that I would recommend that you get and read. I don't know if it's available on Kindle or not. I have a hard copy. I have a paperback copy of it. One of my favorite books of all time, in which this book was written in the 50s, became popular because Dwight Eisenhower had talked about it. He was reading it. And it's why people get caught up, for example, good people get caught up in something like Nazism. Why good people get caught up in dictators, people who would not hurt a fly get caught up with these thugs. And I've been thinking a lot about that in regards to Donald Trump. And I think this is what it comes down to. I think that people know who they're these people know what they're getting into, I think. All right? But they're hoping to come down on the right side of it. And even if they don't end up benefiting from it all the time, they know, and even if there's death that goes along with it, and concentration camps, and purges, and everything else, they're hoping at least once in a while they do benefit from it. Because they're thinking otherwise, if it's just a regular democracy, a representative republic, then they have to do things on their own, and they may not have any luck at all. They're thinking, you know what, a broken clock is right twice a day. Maybe I'm that broken clock. So 2 out of the 24 hours in a day, I get it right. The other 22 out of the 24 hours, it's going to suck. But at least I know twice in some period I'm going to be right. Whereas in a situation where everybody's is working hard, going to work, doing what they can, there's no guarantee that I ever benefit. I may get beat all the time. And I can't live with that. And I think that's kind of what's going on with Donald Trump. I think a lot of these people know the kind of president he would be, that they know in many aspects there's going to be a lot of suffering, but they're hoping, because they aren't having any luck in their life, maybe that strong man will side with me just once in a while, because otherwise I got no shot. In a system of free markets and laissez-faire and capitalism, I got no shot. Well, you know what? If you got no shot, that's on you. It's on you. But those people don't want to hear it. And so they want some forceful person to come in and do things, and they just cross their fingers hoping that they'll force things in a way that these insecure people benefit from it. That's the best I can come up with, but I got to go. You can email me at edwarddentzel@reagan.com. Dentzel domain is my Twitter feed. edwarddentzel.com is where you can find all of my old Red State Talk Radio shows. You can also find them at Podcast, Podbean, SoundCloud, and YouTube. edwarddentzel.com/book is where you can download for free the first chapter of my next book called The Comebacks. Find me on Facebook and LinkedIn. It's been been a pleasure talking to you tonight. You've been listening to the Dentzel Domain on Red State Talk Radio, and I urge you to have a great weekend.